Welcome, folks. I hope this full moon finds you well. Shane Lightheart, thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well. On the theme of bipolar hibernation, I'm going to start by reading some old metal lyrics. I find Coma by GNR captures a lot of what it's like to be in bipolar hibernation. Hey, you caught me in a coma, and I don't think I want to ever come back to this world again. I kind of like it in a coma because no one's ever gonna make me come back to this world again. Now I feel as if I'm floating away. I can't feel all the pressure, and I like it this way, but my body's calling. My body's calling. Won't you come back to this world again? Suspended deep in a sea of black. I've got the light at the end. I've got the bones on the mast. Well, I've gone sailing. I've gone sailing. I could leave so easily. While friends are calling back to me, I said, they're leaving it all up to me when all I needed was clarity and someone to tell me what the fuck is going on. Slipping farther and farther away. It's a miracle how long we can stay in a world our minds created, in a world that's full of shit. Please understand me. I'm climbing through the wreckage of all my twisted dreams, but this cheap investigation just can't stifle all my screams, and I'm waiting at the crossroads, waiting for you. Where are you? No one's gonna bother me anymore. No one's gonna mess with my head no more. I can't understand what all the fighting's for, but it's so nice here, down off the shore. I wish you could see this, because there's nothing to see. It's peaceful here and it's fine with me. Not like the world where I used to live. I never even wanted to live. You live your life like it's a coma, so won't you tell me why we'd wanna? With all the reasons you give, it's kind of hard to believe. But who am I to tell you that I've seen any reason why you should stay? Maybe we'd be better off without you anyway. Got a one-way ticket on your last chance ride. Got a one-way ticket to your suicide. Got a one-way ticket, and there's no way out alive. And all this crass communication that has left you in the cold isn't much for consolation when you feel so weak and old. But if home is where the heart is, then there's stories to be told. No, you don't need a doctor. No one else can heal your soul. Got your mind in submission, got your life on the line, but nobody pulled the trigger. They just stepped aside. They be down by the water while you watch them waving goodbye. They be calling in the morning. They be hanging on the phone. They be waiting for an answer while you know nobody's home. And when the bells stopped ringing, it was nobody's fault but your own. There were always ample warnings. There were always subtle signs. And you would have seen it coming, but we gave you too much time. And when you said that no one's listening, why'd your best friend drop a dime? Sometimes we get so tired of waiting for a way to spend our time. And it's so easy to be social. It's so easy to be cool. Yeah, it's easy to be hungry when you ain't got shit to lose. And I wish that I could help you with what you hope to find. But I'm still out here waiting, watching reruns of my life. When you reach the point of breaking, you know it's going to take some time to heal the broken memories that another man would need just to survive. Greetings, Dust. Elder, good to see you. And good news, Lightheart does not have COVID. Excellent. Glad to hear that. All right, does anyone have anything to talk about? How have I been? Yeah, past month has been largely in a coma, that bipolar hibernation, other than pulling myself together for a few conversations or a few things. The majority of my time has been extreme depression, extreme fatigue, hours and hours and hours of just laying down and meditating. How about you, Dust? How have you been? Okay, I queued up another set of lyrics, which maybe will get me talking. Whereas the other one was introspective. This one is a song that came to mind as I caught up in the news a bit lately. Motorhead, On Your Feet or On Your Knees. What I find interesting about this song showed me how different I still see so much of these lyrics exactly the same way, except the title, On Your Feet or On Your Knees. When I was a stupid kid, it seemed to me like the answer was on your feet. Um, but now I see it the exact opposite way. But anyway, here we go. We'll see if it gets me talking about things afterwards. I was looking at the TV news, people everywhere blowing a fuse, people everywhere under the gun, little kids dying never had no fun. Human beings ain't got no brains. Think you're better, but you're all the same. Think you're clever, but you're all to blame. Here we are again in the same old frame. Shut up, I'm talking to you. It's on television, so it can't be true. And I can't play the game no more. Wake up and see it through. Kill the many to save the few. I know what the blind man sees. On your feet or on your knees. Headline terror, crime on rise. Half ain't true and the rest is lies. Same old smile on the same old face. Same old horse wins the same old race. I wouldn't smile if I was you. Don't relax because it ain't so new. Watch your back, light the light outside. Somebody coming that you just can't bribe. Shut up, I'm talking to you. It's on television, so it must be true. I can't believe their lies no more. Watch out, I'm coming through. Boogeyman gonna bite you too. I know what the blind man sees. On your feet or on your knees. I was reading some magazine. It was written for human beings. Can't believe all the stuff I read. Human trash for the human head. You humans shouldn't be so proud. You humans shouldn't talk too loud. You humans just ain't too smart. It's enough to break my human heart. Shut up, I'm talking to you. Pay attention because I mean you too. And I will tell you something now. Your values ain't worth a dime. Human rights just human crime. I know what the blind man sees. On your feet or on your knees. When you look at how the past year went on so many fronts, and what people in the things that the IDW have brought up, confirmation bias and whatnot. You can the Eastern side, like we don't know what the fuck we are. Like Peterson says, you don't have ideas, ideas have you. How deep confirmation bias goes. The way Peterson says, what you aim at alters your perception of reality. I've been somewhat disappointed that I've seen in some places where people begin to use that in the wrong way. Like learning about confirmation bias and these things, they look at others' confirmation bias through their own confirmation bias. Like as opposed to applying it to themselves, they apply it outwards. And When I was young, that on your feet or on your knees was, of course, on your feet. And let's take on your feet or on your knees, both, like archetypically, on your feet, stand up, fight for what's right, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Stand up against, like be active. But the whole rest of that story, that you humans shouldn't be so proud, you humans shouldn't talk too loud, you humans just ain't too smart, it's enough to break my human heart. Once you see how fucking blind other people are, and you put it together with those things I mentioned before, or Donald Hoffman's work, that you literally are inside a hallucination. I don't think the answer to that is stand up. I think the answer to that is to realize and be on your knees. Of course, as a kid, I thought about it as bowing to the government and whatnot. But when you see our own insufficiency, you realize that whatever God is, whether it's like that Jordan Peterson one that Sam Harris can accept, that it's the highest good that you don't understand, or whether it's what Pajot thinks of, or what I think of as God. If we're all that fucking stupid, it's like in the IDW, the criticism of people who say socialism wasn't tried right. The answer is, oh, you just think you would do it better. I realized how arrogant I was when I was younger to think that the answer to that revelation is to stand up. I think the answer is to kneel down and to bend down before a transcendent truth that you don't understand. And you begin to learn about confirmation bias and see spins people put things on, how people get pulled down rabbit holes, all that shit. I'm really surprised to see, I've seen some people who in the past I've seen talk about confirmation bias, straw manning, just doing ridiculous amounts of it. Maybe the answer isn't to stand up. It's to kneel down, and kneeling also and to humble yourself and to examine it in yourself first. That idea of stand for something or you'll fall for anything. I get what it means in one way. But in another, you stand for anything too fucking hard, you close yourself off. Not only will you not fall for anything, you also won't learn anything new. Being wrong feels like being right. And I like, when I look at so much, it doesn't matter which divide it is, which information war, whether it's like the left, right, whether it's atheist believers, whether it's so much of what I saw when I've looked around at a few things recently was, it's like everyone wants peace by winning the war, by converting the other, by making someone else understand the right way. Where so much of this shit is wired into us. We can't, and I mean meditation, fucking therapy, like there are lots of processes to improve seeing your own confirmation bias, mindfulness meditation, and you can learn to see through some of that shit, but then you realize just how much you don't know. But we're wired differently. There's certain things none of us are going to understand. What I don't like about so much of the information war is not only does it not impress me when someone's pointing out all the biases and mistakes of the other side and then saying that they have the objective perspective. That doesn't impress me. That's just saying I am so caught up in my bias that I can only see theirs and I think I'm seeing the objective world. I'm much more impressed when somebody says, look, I know my bias is this. I lean left this way. I have this bias towards this. So I know that I'm prone to seeing this subject this way. But still, given that, this is what I'm seeing. But as opposed to the answer with so many things going on, I think if some aspects of the IDW protocol, the good faith shit, and if you can humble yourself enough to not assume you're right, instead of trying to influence the information wars by getting everyone to understand the same thing so we can get along, it's what can we do to the public conversation? What can we contribute to the world that doesn't enable us to make the two sides agree, but enables the two sides to love each other even if they don't agree with each other? Like, how do we spread a universal love that isn't worried about my tribe, your tribe? I'll love you if you agree with me on this. How do we take more seriously the Christian thing of loving your enemy, like actually loving your enemy? I don't feel like I explained any of that well. Fuck, sorry. The depression seized up my brain for a minute there. All right, let's see what's going on in chat. Dust's been slowly repairing. Church has helped me a lot. Good. God bless you. I'm glad that's helping. Hey, Jam. Good to see you. Martin. Good to see you too. Dan. Sally. And Tarot for Self-Knowledge. By the way, Sally's putting out a ton of content. I'm not keeping up with very much of it, honestly. But the last one I checked out was my favorite piece of hers yet. I'm forgetting what it's called. So go subscribe if you've never checked out Sally Jo M. Cooper's channel. Go subscribe. She's putting out a ton of content. And she did the logo for the channel here. She's a good friend. And I'm sure she would appreciate the support. Lightheart says, become the truth love you want to see in others. That starts with humility. Yes. And Jam says, oh yeah, confirmation bias and subconscious mechanisms are behind so many efforts of enlightenment. Yeah, and people mean different things by enlightenment, and there's different levels and whatnot. But one aspect of enlightenment is expanding your consciousness and becoming more aware of what goes on inside you. See, and like the stuff Jonathan Haidt talks about, or like he talks a bit about how it works, and they've done studies. Yeah, obviously, Haidt's work is based on studies and shit. But it's like, if you emotionally don't want to believe something, what your brain will do is search information looking for anything that will allow you to ignore whatever it is. So if you're presented with a fact or a fact you don't like and you go to research it, you will just research until you find something that to you is a good enough excuse to not believe that. So that if anyone brings that up, you've got your one fact that, no, what about this? This puts that in doubt. It doesn't even need to disprove it. It just needs to give you plausible reason to deny it. And that if you want to believe something, you will search for information. Your brain will just pick out, you just look for whatever allows you to believe it. And when you encounter a fact that allows you to believe what you want to believe, you will not be skeptical at all. You will take that on. I discovered all of that shit just by being bipolar and going into isolation and working on mindfulness. Like both mindfulness and confirmation bias were not concepts I knew when I discovered them. It was just spending a bunch of time alone. And in fact, with the confirmation bias one, when I noticed how my brain, because it was paying really, really close attention to how everything I do is affecting what emotions it brings up, what thoughts arise, why those thoughts arise, what are tied to them, and all that shit. And I was really into like conspiracy shit at one point while working on mindfulness. And I was caught up in like a lot of my own biases. And I was listening to this conspiracy shit that was going really far. And then one day being mindful of doing it and noticing the rush I was getting, all of a sudden I noticed exactly what Jonathan Haidt points out. I was like, holy fuck, this is emotionally driven from beneath. And you could find different reasons why I wanted to believe this or why I wanted to believe that. And I actually observed it in myself that if something was a fact that leads me to need to believe something I don't want to, I will scan for some reason to discredit that. Oh, wait, that guy also said this thing, which is wrong, so fuck it, I can discredit it. But I wouldn't do the reverse. If someone said something I want to believe, I'd instantly, okay, this person's credible. And if they say a second and third thing I want to believe, they become really credible. Then I encounter another fact that's way the fuck out there, but that I don't have a problem believing. I would take that on because this person's trustworthy. But then even if at one point they said something I don't want to believe, I would be able to throw that away and still use their confirmation for the other things. So it's like, if I don't want to believe someone's main point, one little slip with something else is I can discredit them. If I wanted to believe someone else's main point, they could make a bunch of other little slips and I would just say, oh, they're just wrong about that. And there's more mechanisms that it's hard to describe. But I really deeply discovered that in myself. And I don't see many people. Yeah, not like I don't know how many people there are, but recently when I looked into how people are talking about what's going on in the world, and looking at a bit on the left, a bit on the right, a bit, here, there, like different sources, I was disappointed in how much on every single side they were really busy calling out confirmation bias, spin, like flat out deception, all that shit on the other side, and just totally blind to their own or proud of their own. Like I am so right. I see. Yeah, I just found that disappointing. But it takes a lot of time to discover yourself. And the world's very fast paced for most people. So I also don't like judge them for that. If I was them and in their situation, I would be exactly the same. Fuck, I really feel like I'm not explaining anything well tonight. All right, let's catch up a bit with chat. Let's see. All right, Tarot for Self-Knowledge says, I started a new job. Customer call in, I take down their information for their deliveries. I find it fascinating how half are calm and understanding if I can't understand what they're saying right away. And the other half gets so mad that they yell at me and treat me like I'm stupid. If someone doesn't understand what you were saying, getting angry at them and talking down to them only makes it worse. Yeah, absolutely. Another point I heard Jonathan Haidt make was like exactly that with the two sides of like left, right, like the media. It's if someone who's got like recognizes their natural left wing bias or whatever, goes to a right wing source to like check themselves. If when they get there, the first thing they read on that is condescending towards the left wing, insulting, like hurts their feelings within the first minute of looking at that, they're going to fucking move away from it and not listen to any of your other points. If someone doesn't understand you and you fill them with negative emotion of any sort, like you get condescending, judgmental, you treat them like they're stupid because they can't understand, all you do is shut down receptivity. You trigger like defense mechanisms, or yeah, it's counterproductive to two sides of an argument, or two sides of anything. It's counterproductive for them to understand each other if it's about insulting and degrading the other side. Also, I think it's damaging to us psychologically to not be able to love the other side. Like if somebody's got to agree with you or be part of your tribe for you to have a sense of oneness with them, that blocks you off to so much of yourself. If you can't even see your oneness with other human beings, how are you going to see your oneness with the earth, with the sun, with, heavenly realms, chipmunks? It's just you're cutting yourself off from so much of what you are. That Jesus's line, like the judge not lest ye be judged. I think that I love that sentence, and I think it means different things at different levels and all that. But one of the meanings I found in introspection about the judge not lest ye be judged is it's not just, karma, whatnot. Like aside from the metaphysical, which I think is there, it also seems like sociologically and psychologically factual as well. Sociologically, if you come to me being super judgmental of someone else, it makes me more judgmental of you. First of all, if you call someone else a liar, and then I observe you lying later, the natural impulse within me is to be more judgmental about you for having done that than if you hadn't judged someone else. Or if you're extremely harsh on someone else on anything, and you don't see your own faults, like it drives the emotion to be more judgmental of you, especially you're judgmental of someone else. It triggers in them like to be judgmental of you. The other thing I find is that you also do it to yourself. If you can't find that universal love for everyone, whether they're right or wrong, or whether they're this or that, then you will judge yourself the other way. If you can't love and respect somebody else because they're wrong about something, then how are you going to stay open-minded about everything you're wrong about and look for where you're wrong? If you've defined it as bad to be wrong about something, as unlovable to be wrong about something or to have whatever faults, then if you have that fault yourself, you're going to judge yourself and hate yourself for it. Or if you're judgmental of people who are wrong, then you're just going to pretend you're right. You're not going to be right. You're going to maintain the feeling of being right, which is being wrong. When you're wrong, you feel right. All the thinkers I'm most impressed by are the ones who are aware that they don't actually know. That deep down on the most fundamental level, there's more to what we don't know than what we do. Jam says there's a theory that certain personality types have a higher tendency for confirmation bias, the Myers-Briggs distinction being one of them. That doesn't surprise me. Hi, Bravery. Thanks for coming. Introverted thinking is the most likely to use confirmation bias. interested, and I'm very introverted. So maybe I discovered confirmation bias of my own because it's stronger than in me than some other people. Hey Nolan, good to see you. It's been too long since we've talked. How you doing? Okay, and the follow-up to what Jam was saying is whereas extroverted thinking is the most data-driven and observative function, introverted thinking is about collecting data to support a certain theory. Dust says the apparent paradox of self-deception. Hey, Witcher. Witcher says Shane's streaming you in Bridges of Meaning. Merc, by the way, thought you should know your audience is broader than you know. Okay, keep up the good work on yourself, brother. You're looking and sounding great. Glad you're emerging. I don't feel like I'm looking and sounding great, but I'm depressed right now. I know that twists me to fucking looking at everything about myself negatively. But thanks for being here, and thanks for letting me know I'm streaming over on Bridges of Meaning, which is cool. So, hey, anyone over on Bomb, much love and God bless to everyone. And Jam follows up with, but extroverted thinking has a harder time coming to conclusions for that reason. That's very sweet, Lightheart. Merc is well loved and treasured more than he may imagine. Yeah, it's odd. Like another thing I've noticed, because recently a bunch of people, like recently as in over the past month, because this is my first time on, a few people have reached out to like let me know I helped them in the past or they hope I'm doing well, let them know that like letting me know that they care about me. It's like genuinely a surprising amount of people care about me, feel I've helped them, offer to help me in any way they can, say like just the nicest fucking shit about me. And like Peterson talks about, our brains are wired to take in the negative information more than the good. Or I heard Joe Rogan talk about that, how he said, you can read 100 good comments and then 3 really nasty ones. It's like those 3 hit you. And you know what the idea being for like survival functionality and such, it makes sense to be wired to observe problems and to take for granted what's going well. I've observed that in myself. Like it happens even when I'm manic and all fucking full of myself. Um, Even then, negative outweighs positive. But when I'm depressed, I am shocked at how quickly just the most amazingly nice thing someone has said that like genuinely means something to me. Just how quickly it just goes out. It's like setting down a lit candle in the snow. It just sizzles right out, and I just feel like shit. It's that filter we have of noticing what's wrong and not seeing what's good. Just turns way the fuck up with bipolar depression. But still, thank you to everyone who's been supportive, everyone who's here tonight, or anyone who's written me with any support recently. It means a lot to me, even though, yeah, it has trouble fucking sticking. And depression can do weird fucking tricks to shit. Like if you're being too smart for your own good exists in a lot of ways. Being too clever and being depressed. It's amazing the thoughts that can come up to me. couple people on one day wrote to me encouragingly and like wrote about things I did that helped them. And my depression was able to generate a feeling of feeling like shit, because if I helped those people, how many more people could I have helped if I was doing a better job at this? And so my depression can turn what should be really motivating. I helped a couple people. And you piece of shit, you were able to help a couple people with this shitty ass way you were doing it. How many more people could you have helped if you were doing a better job? Okay, some of this is you guys talking to each other. Oh, and one thing, like no promises. I'm not sure what the fuck I can handle, and I'm fluctuating on this a bit. So no promises as to when, but maybe next week, maybe in a few weeks, I'll start doing lunatic patrols once a week. And this time, instead of like the random way before, the idea in the works possibly is we'll start up lunatic patrols again. Andrea with the bangs has really wanted to go through the show The Good Place with us. And I think that would make it easier on me to try getting involved in that again, even though I've got some more fucking winter depression to go through, because Andrea's a great talker. So if I'm feeling low, and after the idea being we watch like 2 episodes, typical lunatic patrol. We watch something for 40 minutes, then hang out and talk after, sometimes related to what we're watching, and then sometimes, just lunatic patrol shit, talking about sorting ourselves out or sharing what's been helpful for us or just getting to know each other. All that wonderful, weird shit we do. But yeah, so possibly we will start that soon. If you want to be involved in that, make sure you're in the Discord. I think I put the link for our Discord in the description if there's anyone who's not already on our Discord. But over the next couple of weeks, watch on Discord, because that's where we'll host it. Yeah, the rough plan is every Friday night, maybe starting around 9 Eastern Standard Time, we'll sort that out. Or fucking I'll fall apart and we won't sort it out. I don't know. No promises. But maybe we'll start up a weekly lunatic patrol. Okay, Lightheart says, loving another yields dividends beyond our comprehension. Okay, this I'm going to tie back to something I said earlier. So Lightheart says, loving another yields dividends beyond our comprehension. Love yourself by knowing God loves you, which allows you to love others unconditionally. Yes, and so the flip side of judge not, lest ye be judged, is that when you meditate on, like you do the meditation, meditate on agapic love, or like the Christian route of loving your neighbor as yourself, loving your enemy, connecting to God's love for others, finding Christ's love for you, Christ, like that unconditional love is the same thing. If you can do it for others, it's easier to do it for yourself. If you're judgmental, spiteful, hateful towards others, you're going to be that way to yourself. And if you don't think you're doing it consciously, you're going to be building that up in your subconscious. If you work on unconditional love for others, if you work on forgiving others, like recently I've had some hard shit happen to me. And with bipolar, it's been fucking hard. Like fury, right? Like righteous indignation, like the desire to lash out, to make people pay, to this isn't fair, like rises up. And it's hard, but I do the work, like I talked about with Amateo, to see the other person as unenlightened, to see the ignorance in them, the pain in them, or like Sam Harris suggests, you imagine them that poor 4-year-old that was going to turn into this person, that committing this sin. And it can be hard work to forgive people who are like really hurting you, especially if it's in a way you don't deserve. But one of the weird payoffs to that is when you can learn to be loving to the world and even to the things in the world that hurt you. It becomes easier to love yourself when you're feeling suicidally depressed. It becomes easier to unconditionally love yourself when you've fucked up. As above, so below, as within, so without. How we feel about others affects how we feel about ourselves in so many fucking ways. Okay, we got good news here. Nolan says I'm doing pretty good. I rearranged a few things and it's working out well so far. Excellent. That made me, well, I'm still fucking depressed and everything, but that put a little glow of happiness to know you're doing well. And Jam agrees with me. Okay. Jam said, how do you think the future will be for you? Who are you asking? Because above that, you were responding to Nolan. Is that to me or is that to Nolan? Let me see. Nolan didn't respond. So I'll take it as being for me, I guess. How do I think the future will be for me? So when I examine that, like I feel like the future is going to be fucking horrible for me, but I'm aware I'm depressed and like I'm mindful. Like if I'm not looking at the world just through my depression, I'm also looking at my depression, whatever other subpersonalities are active. So because of the state I'm in, I have a very difficult time picturing anything positive in the future. And it really, really feels like the future is going to be miserable. Like each day is getting through one day at a time, or sometimes taking it down to an hour at a time. And with just this commitment to live out the rest of my life, even though I know it's going to be nothing but difficulty and pain and depression, it's like that seems like the most real thing to me. And I don't even know how to describe how real that seems to me. But I've been through this fucking cycle enough. I've developed a level of mindfulness that I can observe my insanity. And so I know, even though it feels like it feels like bullshit to say this now, I know I will not be depressed forever. I know I'm looking at things in a horribly warped view. But what's funny is it's kind of like in Social Dilemma. Is that what the thing about but anyway, the people who designed all these algorithms that hijack our brains and Facebook and YouTube and all that shit, even the people who designed those things, they still find those things still work on them. So they cut themselves off from using things because even if they know that the like system or the way the scroll is like done to trigger dopamine kicks to addict you to it, you can understand the process, observe it happening in yourself, and it still happens. So I can know why it seems this way. I can know that in theory, I should assume that the future can't be as bad as it looks like it's going to be. Yet I still fucking am full of that. And in the suicidal moments, it feels like the commitment is to endure a life that will be endless suffering and to try to do my best through it and make things not so bad for other people to the best of my ability, or at the very least, don't make it worse on them. But that it's going to be rough for me the whole way through is what it feels like. And so I work a lot on giving up on control of outcome. And I recognize, okay, I'm going to fucking see things negative. So I'm just not even going to, I'm not going to believe myself. That's what feels most believable. It's very hard to believe in anything good coming about. So I'm just not going to predict the future. Same way that if you're too drunk to drive properly, you just say, okay, I'm not going to drive. So I don't think about or when I think about the future, I don't attach to it. I let it come and go. And, I deal with it like, okay, even if the rest of this is suffering. I'm not saying it will be. It seems that way at the moment. But even that, if that is what it is, I'm going to ride it out and, you know, carry my own cross, bear the burden, and try to do it nobly. Okay, Witcher says, they say the nicest fucking shit about me. Like quoting, apparently I just said that. That made me laugh. The juxtaposition of pleasantries and cursing. Oh, good. That gave me another little glow in the vast fucking frozen wasteland of depression inside. There's a little glow that I made Witcher laugh. Dust says thought storms are scary. Yeah, they're fucking intense. Witcher says smash that thumbs up button, feed the algorithm, and then feed me Seymour. I fucking loved that movie as a kid. Yeah, I never do any of that shit, so we haven't been putting this is the first content so far this year. Yeah, it does help if you like and subscribe and share and all that shit. It is appreciated. I just never think to do any of that. So thanks, Witcher. Okay, now answered the fucking question, and now Jen says that was to Nolan, but I'd be interested in your future too. So yeah, it gave me something to rattle on. But Nolan, that question was for you. I answered my version of it. Now, of course, Nolan, if you don't feel like answering, we're all fine with that. But if you do want to share that, what do you think the future will feel like for you? Okay. Jem says, do you think the observation of a pathology in your psyche is sufficient to change things? And if not, what does determine change and healing really? Like, okay, yeah, no. Observation of a pathology in your psyche does not change things. I've listened to other like mindful, intelligent people who are fucking crazy who have studied their kinds of craziness, and it doesn't make it go away. Fuck, I wish I could remember her name. There was a good TED talk by a schizophrenic woman, and she understands the brain function of why she sees an evil clown follow her. But that doesn't stop the fucking evil clown from following her. Now, I once knew someone else a long time ago, schizophrenic, who often saw a woman in a white dress. And for him, his schizophrenia was a mystery. He's like a teenager, and it was like he got diagnosed, but avoided his therapy as much as he could. He wasn't trying to understand his schizophrenia. He was kind of trying to run away from it. But this other woman showed that, like, she studied psychology. She understands the function. It doesn't make the fucking clown go away. She still sees it. And so for me, on multiple dimensions, because like I'm bipolar in a lot of fucking ways now that aren't part of bipolar. It's like I experience opposites with everything. And so I don't just look at being bipolar through the medical or psychological model. I also look at it through like shamanic and magical models, like spiritual models. I don't know what the fuck my angel is. I don't know if I actually will exist. Like, I don't know if my consciousness actually is something on its own, that I have a soul, or that I have psychic phenomenon occur, or like all of this shit. I don't know if any of that is real, mystical fucking experiences or delusions. I look at it both ways. I've researched it both ways, but learning about why my brain, my soul, my energy system, my however you want to define me, my pattern, operating within patterns, observing patterns, finding out reasons or the mechanisms of this shit does not stop it, like does not make it go away. Also, the mindfulness training, the finding the deeper self, the part of you that experiences, or the part of me, sorry, that experiences being bipolar, the part of me that experiences thoughts but aren't the thoughts, that experiences emotions but aren't the emotions. Getting that detachment from it doesn't stop it from being there. It allows you to deal with it though. And then there are practices that sometimes you can, and with some of these things, they can be improved and some things can't, it seems to me, or can be improved in different ways. But like once you're mindful of these things, the more you learn about them, or the spiritual side of all that shit, the mystical way I look at it, it hasn't stopped the cycle, like that basic cycle of depression and mania, but it allows me to manage it differently. Which does a lot, like some practices, some understandings, some prayers, some rituals, some things actually work. But how long have I been crazy now? I lost it in 2006. It's like 15 years. Wow. Over that time, I really do not feel I have become less crazy. Even though I haven't been in a mental institution in 10 years. 11 now. Anyway, not because I'm less crazy, it's because I've learned to manage it better. And so when I wasn't managing it at all, the mania would take me over, and then I would do things that make the mania worse. I would go with the delusion. So, stop eating, you feel like you're superpowered, you stop sleeping at all. You fucking, and like you go with it, and it's just, then you're making it all much, much worse. It's like I feel like I still get just as much of the manic energy come in, but I channel it out now. I manage it properly. And the same thing with the depression. Especially this winter, fuck, I hit some powerfully suicidal points. I don't think the suicidal depression was any less than it was at its worst during the first two cycles. But back then, I wasn't doing the forgiving and accepting. And look, if this is the cost of all existence, like that idea of bearing the sins of the world is for everything to be the way it is, obviously, from that cause and effect chain, from the butterfly effect and whatnot. Apparently, I had to be this for the universe to be this. I'll suffer that. Before I had that, and before I had the mindfulness to observe the suicidal depression, to observe how it was affecting my thoughts, I would go with so much dark shit. This is unfair. It's this person's fault who did that. It's that person's fault that. It's the way society is. It's then draw you down different. Okay, it's the Illuminati have warped the world, and it's fluoride and chemtrails that have polluted our environment, and it's just that looking to blame everyone else for the state I'm in. And then it ends up with like bad behavior, waking up suicidally depressed, you can't handle it. So just doing emotional drive-bys, calling people up, screaming and crying, calling people up, demanding they fix things. It's like I don't do any of that shit now. Get the suicidal depression and I stick to, all right, I agreed to go through this. Yes, that person's made this worse, but they're doing the best they can. My job is to take care of myself, to process it, to not go with it, to refuse to hate and blame, to refuse to turn against creation. You just go down to that fundamental thing. Like this whole game, all of it, tied together in a way we don't understand. You can't just change one thing. Is all of existence worth it? If you answer yes, then you can do that, taking on the sins of the world. When the sins of the world hurt me, right down to the way evolution worked, how, to the level that it's genetic. It's, evolution, genius, and madness are tied into each other. For us to get the Einsteins, and the guy from The Beautiful Mind, and Cantor and whatnot, we also get insane people. They're necessary for the shamanism. For some of us, it's not that hard, but for the way genetics works, some of us end up deformed. Some of us end up with greater difficulties than others. It's part of a bigger process. And if you trust it's for the good, you just commit to going through it and trying to do the best you can. And not outraging at how much of your life is suffering. But if you decide it's not worth it, get vengeful. It can start with blaming this person or that person. But if you're really fucking nuts like me, it goes all the way. You just get a fucking roaring demon in you, telling you pointing out to you how much it is not worth it, how the suffering outweighs the pain. And it wants you to define existence itself as evil and to lash back. So I got to be mindful all the time. Observe it, choose what I'm going to agree with and what I'm not. To not try to get rid of the suicidal part of me, but to learn to deal with it differently. How did I get rambling on that? I don't even know where I started. Sally's painting her bathroom. And Lightheart wants to know if it's with surrealism. Okay, Jam says, observation only doesn't help me personally. It just overwhelms me to know too much data about my pathologies where I cannot fix it. It's like thinking about the contents of the air at every second. I think change can only happen when a psychosocial integration on all levels takes place. Observation and studying can aid that process to become even easier, more sophisticated, and consensual. You got to be in the flow of life and have to situate yourself inside it with your whole being, from your child parts to your adult and intellectual parts. I love how consciousness is able to observe the complexity of all our levels of being and how they stack up. Yes, we can only take in so much at a time. Like that's why our brain filters out so much of reality for us, is we can only take in so much information at a time. We can only change so quickly. And don't give up. I don't want to make it sound like give up on fixing things, because some fucking people find the right medication or the right this or that. Some people have fucking faith curings. Like there's people who have major mental illnesses who sometimes get some sort of miraculous cure, or They find that they just need to eat beef, that it was this thing. Or for some people, medications can change their life. For others, the meds don't work. Nothing works. It's like, don't give up hope that it can be changed. Look for ways to change it, but don't worry so much about like an on-off switch of like cured or not. If you can find anything that makes it better, hey, better is better. And if you can't get rid of it, then you can still learn a way to accept it. You can learn how to deal with it better, how to compensate for it. You can learn the kinds of care you need to survive it, to get through it. Fuck yeah, and this depressed part of me hates saying it, but you can also switch. Why has this been done to me? Why am I this way, in the sense of it being a curse? To play the game of asking, why has it been done for me? How is this a blessing in disguise? What does going through this teach me? We can develop a lot in suffering, especially if you can accept it, be willing to bear the burden of it. Lightheart says your angel may be a multi-dimensional connection with Omni Logos. I'll DM you more information. Okay, interesting. When it comes to all that shit, though, I don't worry about defining things anymore, because I'm not just one thing, and I don't define anything one way. To use the language of subpersonalities, it's like I have an inner atheist. When that becomes active, and it's active more during depression and whatnot, but when the inner atheist, or maybe it's kind of more agnostic atheist now, after my integration work, but like it considers the most realistic and probable way to examine my angel as a psychological phenomenon. It examines it that way. But much, much more of myself finds the most true way of interacting with it to treat it like a real angel, that it is a real angel. The mystical parts of me feel it is a real angel. But it's like the same thing. That atheist part of me doesn't think we have a soul. It thinks that's highly unlikely. It thinks just the Sam Harris, Ricky Gervais thing. It's you just blink out. It thinks that God, it's fine with God as the metaphor, that psychologically I need the idea of God. And its definition of God is also all that is, was, and ever will be. It's the gestalt of reality. Although to the atheist part of me, it highly doubts that that involves any metaphysics or any souls. But it can still say that it's a useful metaphor for the mystical parts of my brain to use. And it looks at it the way sort of when Jordan gave his safe definitions of God to Sam Harris, the highest good we can conceive of, the thing, the moral way to act based on the laws of the universe and psychology. Like it observes it that way. Different mystical parts of me, feel slightly differently. But like for all of them, it's the angel's something real. My soul is something. There will be a continuation after death. But I'm honestly not that concerned about which is true anymore. Not that I wouldn't like to know, but that seems beyond me knowing until I get out of this sack of meat. So how do I interact with it while being aware of all of that? Even the inner atheist has found through observation that if I interact with it as though it's a real angel, things seem to go well. Like when I talked to Dr. Amate, He pointed out that there's research that shows that if somebody believes a supernatural being has their back, that God protects them or Jesus protects them, or that they have a guardian angel, if someone believes God has a purpose for their life, there's psychological experiments that show that that is beneficial to the person, whether it's true or not. And I can observe it in myself. If I didn't believe this shit, I would have killed myself. Like, I would not have survived my suicidal depressions if I didn't think I had a soul and if I didn't think there was a God. So even the inner atheist